So I guess we can start. So, if other people join, they might join a little bit later. Is that okay with you? Sounds good.
Sure.
So thanks everybody for joining our panel today. We have 3 panelists today to talk to us. They are going to introduce themselves and they are going to introduce the topic as well of the discussion today. We are really excited to have them. Thank you so much for organizing this. Before we start, we just wanted to remind everybody that we have the UXPA International Conference coming up in June, and it's going to be in San Diego in the United States. So if you would like more information about this, please go to our website, uxpa.org, or reach out to me or anybody through the site. Really appreciate you being here. So Tanya, I'm going to pass on to you for introduction of the topic and the panelists, okay?
Thank you, Jana. As Jana mentioned, we're going to be discussing a bit about the state of UX in the MENA region and how it can affect UX best practice and what we do as UX experts to mitigate these issues that we might have. With me today is Tarek Al-Khatib, a very dear colleague of ours. He's an experienced lead, and I'm gonna just briefly introduce you guys, as well as Lara. So Tarek, if you can just give us a brief introduction about yourself, and then move it on to Lara, and I'll end this part of it.
For sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Tarek. Thanks for the intro. I'm an experienced lead at eMakina, an EPAM company based out of Lebanon right now. And I lead a small team of 5 UX designers. We basically work on projects in the region mostly, but also a couple of projects in the US, Europe, and whatnot. I've been in the field of UX for around 13 years, coming on 13 years, ups and downs, and been doing it through agencies and freelancing on my own. And yeah, I'm excited about this panel. Thanks. Lara?
Thank you, Tarek. Hello, everyone. So I'm Lara Shekhani. I'm a lead UX designer at Oliver Wyman, and I work in the digital practice out of Doha, out of the Qatar Doha office. I've been in the field I've been working on tech products for 17 years, but most of my experience has been in UX. And I've worked with startups, agencies, and government and large enterprises. So I've got the chance to work on different types of companies, also different types of industries, which was challenging and exciting, and times we'll talk about it in a bit. And also I taught and taught UI design, and also mentor startups in applying the best practices in this field. And that's about me. And back to you, Tanya.
I'm Tanya Emma Ellison. I'm the head of a UX UI department at a company called Appleman. I have over 15 years of UX experience, user design, UX design, management, and strategy. I'm a very much data-driven designer or UXer. I've helped over 100 startups, mid-sized companies, and corporations innovate responsibility in developing best processes in terms of product development, as well as giving them the edge by implementing user experience best strategies and practices in order to have a unique competitive advantage for their products and brands. And that's me. Jana, back to you.
Thank you. I'm going to be moderating the panel, and I have some questions here. And of course, this is a conversation, so I would encourage the attendees to ask questions using the chat. But I'm going to start. Of course, I want to introduce myself. Jana Pantoja here. I'm speaking today from Seattle. I am a UX researcher in the US. So I'm going to start by asking, what's your general understanding of how people understand or how companies understand UX in your region?
Should I take that or start? All right, okay. So this is my impression of how they understand UX. And the good news is it's maturing. So they're starting to mature more and more with it. But I feel that the bulk of the understanding of what UX, UI is more about the interface design itself. So it's more about, okay, where's the UX? Where are the wireframes? That's the mental connection they have. That's their mental model, rather, about what UX and UI are. And they tend to not know the amount of research that we would like to do prior to beginning a project and setting the resources necessary, be it time and material and time, money, and the relevant stakeholders from the client side in order to do the proper user research. However, once you involve them in such activities, you see a 180 shift of, whoa, oh, wow, this is so interesting. Oh, are those the results of the survey? Oh, wow, we didn't notice that the usability test results would have done that. So this is my impression. What do you think, ladies?
Yeah, much of the same here. I think we've had this discussion before where, yeah, absolutely there. It's more of a, give me the visual of it, you know, rather than, okay, whatever you're doing in the back end, fine, that's all good and dandy, but I really want to see what it is. So it goes into going into this whole graphic design or UI design expectation rather than the science, the behavioral science of what user experience is and what the friction points might be that they can't see, but they want it, even though they might not know what it is, but they want to visualize it as well. So when you start kind of doing these little design studios or trying to engage people and educate them, it's like, you know, yeah, well, UI, UX, and I'm always like, no, it's UX, UI, but okay. It's like always this conversation is, we're not designers, we're behavioralists. So we try and understand what the user is expecting when going from point one to the end goal. So it is time consuming to educate, but it's also beneficial. And a lot of the people come out saying, wow, okay, we didn't know that was UX at all. So when they learn more about it, and this is more a regional thing, advocating UX, discussing it, having these conversations that we're having today, really kind of like shed some light to people that might not really understand it out there, which we're hoping to achieve today. So Lara, what would you?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with both, definitely with what you both said. I mean, like what I see is emerging. I'm going to be a bit on the positive side. Like if I look back 5 years ago and I told people what a UX designer is, I'd still be someone like nobody can label. Like, what do you do? So what are you going to give me? It's not a design. Are you coding? What is it that's, you know, how do I take what you're giving me and do it? So it was like, you know, they cannot label you in whatever you do. Today, I don't have to explain who I am. So, okay, you're a UX UI UX designer. Like, no, you know, there is a level where I see things moving faster than 10 years ago, 12 years ago. And it's emerging. So I think it's getting there. We still have a lot to do, as Tanya was saying, educating. You never can let your guard down and expect that people know what you're doing or the value. You have to always keep educating. And it goes both ways, to businesses and even to people, to professionals. There's also a lack of even understanding that if you're a UX designer, what should you do? And how the separation between UX and UI design. So I think it's very promising in the region. There's a lot of potential. It's growing, it's maturing, but we're not quite there yet. Still a long way.
I just wanted to add to that, Lara, is also it's being transparent within what you're doing with others that I think is more engaging for people. So when you say, okay, this is the design system, or this is something that is going to be representative of our product, then they're more kind of like, come in and know, oh, okay, you're showing that to us. Well, come into the product team and see what we're trying to plan, where it starts building into you being a touch point when they're actually trying to achieve something with the brands.
Sure.
I want to add that it's interesting to see you talking about this, because there is also this kind of sentiment here in the US, for example, where you see great variability in terms of how people understand UX, right? So even within a company, you might have different organizations and teams that understand better or understand less. So it feels like UX researchers and designers here as well are spending a lot of time educating cross-functional partners, stakeholders, right? So question back to you, it's like, how do you see the understanding of UX and the maturity in different kinds of companies, with regards to size, or what makes a company more mature in terms of like comprehension of what UX is in your area?
Actually, I have a changing view about this myself. I used to think that startups were the more accepting or the more receptive companies when it comes to UX, being that they're coming in digital first, they have an agile way of thinking, lean, quick, and they're looking into how do you build a startup, and UX is ingrained in that. While the bigger dinosaur enterprises, there's like all that bureaucracy in there, and they have their ways, and they're still in waterfall methods and whatnot. But recently, this has been changing. I've been working with a couple of clients in the Arab Gulf, and they're huge companies. And I've noticed an appetite and a maturity that I was not expecting when it comes to digital projects, when it comes to the infrastructure, data available, the analytics they're tracking, the mindset itself, because in the region, UX in general is a mindset. We have to always be observing what the user wants. How can we improve, iterate, versus just build a website, leave it for 5 years, and then revamp it in 5 years or so. And I found that these mindsets, instead of being a top-down approach, the boss said this, therefore we have to do this. I found that there's an open mindset with some of these larger enterprises, these larger consortium holding companies in the Gulf. And part of the reason is that's the right way to go, and they see the value of it. But also part of the reason is survival, because you could be a huge, large company, and then a startup can remove you off the scene if you don't play right by the rules as well, right? And I think that's core when it comes to UX. Do you girls share my observation, or do you feel it's a bit different?
I would say, I would, yeah. I want to add to what you're saying. Like, yes, initially I see a more eagerness for startups because they're more agile. No matter what, they're lighter, and it's easier to get, and they have a bigger pain if they don't make it. Especially in the region, startups don't have the budget that you can find in the US or in other parts of the region. You're starting now to have a larger budget, but before it was scarce. So telling them they have to invest on something like this, you could really see the value. They could really see the value. So they're actually eager to learn. I've had more startup owners attend the workshops than professionals in that scene. But I also saw something similar to what Tarek is saying. That comes from the also in the region that you have now visions, you have smart cities, you have more endorsements of on the larger scale of applying practices. And they do understand that you need to be user-centric. And I think it's not about the company size, but it's like if you have the proper endorsement from top management, then the process works. And this is the mindset as well, to add to what Tarek is saying. That's what I feel like. If the mindset is, it has to be enforced from the top, that this is our culture. We are user-centric, we don't make assumptions, we care about people, and we don't want to redo things, and we don't want to just get things out there. We want to make sure that they're data-driven, they're validated. So and I think that's why in startups I see it more, because usually it's the CEO of the startup from the 1 to 5 people team who's interested and who enforces it. So it's that makes it more agile to move there. That's my opinion about this. I don't know what you think, Tanya, or what's your perspective on this?
I agree more on the startup side, because I've worked with a lot of startups and they do tend to be very much user focused, and they want to do things right from the start, as you said, Lara. So absolutely. However, when you come into a company and they understand the value of UX from a certain level, then you have to be more proactive in convincing the stakeholders, because once you have them on board, as you said, then things become manageable. You know, you don't want to kind of fizzle out and be this person in the basement trying to solve a problem, as much of the UX used to be done by Apple, actually. So it's more of you're hands-on, you're engaging, and yes, when stakeholders are involved, then you're gold. You know, so definitely the maturity level is getting there. It's improving. And like North America and other places, we have a ways to go in terms of how we're getting there.
Yeah, and I'm thinking here, there are so many different aspects that are telling of UX maturity, right? In different places. So you're talking about one specific, which is like how people understand UX, right? And what they expect out of it. If you think about other aspects that are telling of UX maturity, what are the other ones that you perceive as being specific or telling of like the companies in your area?
So I'm guessing whether they, oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, Tarek, go ahead. Mike.
I was going to say,
I had my turn.
I was just going to say that if they have the activities built into, if they have the processes built into their internal processes, you know, we run a usability test once a quarter or twice a month. We have a day where we open up our analytics and we all review them together, or, you know, whether these tasks are ingrained into their processes or not. And I've worked with smaller digital companies where they don't have a UX practitioner per se, you know, but I made them understand that you don't need a UX guy. It'll be great if you do, but you don't need a UX guy for that. You can just open your Google Analytics, grab your developers, your business people, look at them, try and observe. You can run a usability test yourself. You can invite some of your customers, run a usability test on yourself, etc. So I think these are other markers that can also manifest the level of maturity that companies have, you know?
Yeah, agreed.
And I think also I would add the processes are for sure, but also which is a challenge in our region as well, is that sometimes we don't have all the answers. I mean, that collaboration, which is something that we also, as in the region, we lack that level of collaboration that, you know what, we don't know what our users are doing. We need to do more effort. So that mindset that we need the insights to make decisions, that not everyone in the room knows the answer. That culture, I think it's getting there. You need the right people to enforce it, but also that, you know, looking at a wireframe or looking at a design and saying, this is what I want as a business owner, that's not how we want it to be. We need the users to lead the way. So I think that shift, just the idea at the top that we're not making decisions, users need to make decisions and lead the product, that also helps, I believe.
That's a good point about collaboration, right? And what you're doing here, it's like a huge, you know, it's a huge step in my opinion, because then you have leaders talking about UX and, you know, of course, you know, promoting what that is and might help with education as well. But I'm wondering, what are the other collaboration opportunities that you have there, like in the sense of like meetups or you know, conferences and events that you organize? What are the main ways that you find to collaborate among yourselves?
we seem to find each other somehow. So that's one way. I mean, there's a lot of projects that require UX, and you end up meeting people that you actually befriend, and you have these discussions. So it's really not on a meetup level yet, unfortunately, only because also there's skepticism, I know from me personally, as to what these UX people are, because unfortunately, a lot of people are saying, are UI practitioners? They come in and say, oh, we're UX UI. And they're not really, unfortunately, not experienced in UX, but having that opportunity to meet with people that have UX experience or want UX experience as well, gets the ball rolling and having the conversation as to what it is, also localizing it, so UX differs from place to place. You implement it as if it's a user, so in a country it's different. You have different kind of practice for what the best practice is for UX, which hasn't really been defined yet. So it's always interesting to kind of have these conversations with experienced people to actually grow it in the region as well, and grow these conversations.
Yeah, and I would like to add to what Tanya is saying. One thing that I find, and I don't know what you think as well, Tanya and Tarek, there aren't many people in the field, even though the people say that they do UX and UI. I mean, especially, and there aren't many people that have a lot of experience. And I see a lot of people coming to me, do you know UX designers? And I think, I can count on my like, on one hand, maybe the ones that I would refer, or that I know that they can take things end to end. And we've been in the field for a long time. So the challenge is as well, I mean, you need the two aspects. You need companies to push people to become better designers because they're giving them the right framework to apply. And you need people to actually do things end to end to grow the field and to get more people in the field. So to have these meetups, to have these sessions, you do need to have experienced people who are doing challenging stuff, who are asking for help. So that's like a vicious circle somehow in our region, unfortunately. And I don't see it in the US or in Europe. Like, I remember the first time I went to a conference in the US, in New York, and like, you feel like everyone understands, and that here in the region you don't see it a lot. You do have sometimes conferences, but they're on the edge, like they're not really insightful enough. They don't have a lot of data or history to share. So I think we need to grow the people skill in the field.
Absolutely, I agree. Yeah, that's
a good question here. So go ahead, Tanya.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say that I saw a question here in the chat. How do you work with our related fields? So human factors, design thinkers, researchers. So I guess, and Natalia, please correct me if I'm wrong. I think it's about collaborating designers, collaborating with other functions and other related roles.
I mean, definitely there isn't much focus, Natalia, in terms of what UX does specifically, so as UX experts, we learn everything. So we do the research, we do HCD, CCD, DDD, etc., all the acronyms, in order to provide the people we're working for or working with the best options for them. So in terms of how we, if there's a possibility of collaborating with people, we actually encourage it. We're really not, UX is really encompassing everything rather than isolating. And that's something that a lot of departments do, like dev departments, they tend to isolate things like that. And we're the ones that are bugging them to kind of like help them out. Let's do some I call them pairing sessions. If you have a problem, you can't fix it in the dev side, maybe I can find a reasonable solution. So things like that are important to do as well, to keep things, fluid when it comes to UX.
Yeah, I agree.
So when you talk about, it seems that the roles are more generalized, right, rather than specialized, which we also see some places in the US. And I'm sorry, I'm comparing to the US the whole time, but that's what I know. So I think it's interesting to just understand better. But if we think about like, if you could have like this discussion and decide what are the main opportunities for UX in your area, what would you say the main opportunities are in terms of like becoming a more mature kind of subject or area?
I think there are lots of opportunities, really, especially in the Arab Gulf, probably, where you have a concentration of the bigger family-owned holding companies that are now undergoing digital transformation, their digital transformation projects. So I think there are vast opportunities for improvement there on all levels, on a research level, well, kick off research, and then like improve on the design levels. Places like Saudi Arabia, I would say they love these big enterprise systems. So they already have the infrastructure ready for data collection. I think they generate some high level reporting, but is there a department, or within each department, is there a resource or some resources that push the UX thought process? I think that's where there are opportunities for growth for these larger companies. Personal observation, and I think there's a huge opportunity as well in the market from an employee, from a human resource perspective, where there are becoming more and more vast opportunities, employment opportunities for our functions, but there's still, we need a UX/UI designer, we need the guy that does it all, or the lady that does it all, right? UX/UI designer. I'm starting to see a bit more specialization. So I'm starting to see every now and then a UX copywriter position opened, that kind of thing. But it's still, I would say, in the UX/UI realm, most of the vacancies out there, most of the mainstream vacancies out there.
Yeah, I would say the thing that is always in a way less important is the main thing that UX is, which is the research. So I find it kind of like, oh, let's just skip the research and go straight to, pain points and friction points and all that. So I think, as the region grows and this field grows, already there's a lot of demand for UX experts or experience, until we start kind of like focusing or having a specific focus. And that's, I say, another 5-10 years down the line, where they'll eventually come up and say, hey, we need UX researchers, or we need like usability testers, or et cetera, et cetera. But for now, unfortunately, it's encompassed into one person, and they kind of drive that into the business in a way.
I would like to add as well what Tanya and Tarek were saying. The big potential in the region is that it's really growing fast. I mean, the whole Gulf, MENA, at least MENA, and if you think of the Gulf, the potential of project and governmental transformation is huge. It's huge. You have also you have the startup scene that is booming. We're behind than the US or even Europe, but it's the post-pandemic era. I mean, I haven't seen as many jobs in UX, specific UX, not UX UI, since as much as I've seen since May 2020. People are hiring, people understand that they have to do it right. You have, the world is moving fast, and also with UX. So I think the potential, there's a huge potential in the region, and there's a lot of investments in the region as well to grow it and to come up with tech products and to compete with other regions as well. So I think there's still a lot to be done, but there's a lot of opportunities that are going to be open, whether with even the KSA, with Dubai and all the countries as well, who have visions of thinking of people, transforming lives, and making things better. Are there, and I think there's a lot of potential for designers as well to solve major world problems that we're facing.
It might be useful for the audience, especially the one that's not very versed in the region. The MENA region, it's a very vast region. I know that probably the more Western audiences, you start hearing the Middle East in a negative, have negative connotation, wars and whatnot, and that kind of thing. But the Middle East and North Africa is a vast region, and these problem spots are actually the exception, not the rule. So it's actually divided into the Arab Gulf, mostly the Levantine area to the north, and then you've got Egypt, Sudan, and then the Western Arabia, Morocco, Tunisia, Algeria, that kind of thing. So we keep referring to the Arab Gulf. That's where you've got all the oil-rich nations. There's lots of investments going on there, lots of digital transformation projects. Millions of expats live there, huge business opportunities, growth opportunities. So I think that's the region where you see most of the investment, and that's where the companies are more cash rich to invest in such initiatives. You've got Egypt as well, is doing great. The last couple of years, it's been doing great. It's been booming as well. Yeah, I just wanted to mention that to our Western audience.
Thank you. And I want to follow up with you, Tarek, a little bit about something that you said. You said that some places or some organizations or locations are more developed in terms of infrastructure. They're more infrastructure ready for data collection, right? So I'm wondering how data privacy, it's also a conversation that's happening in the region.
Okay, so definitely, I would say GDPR in Europe really started the fire, triggered a fire for this conversation to happen. And because of that, each country now is developing its own set of online rules. I know the UAE, for example, has a comprehensive set of online rules and online privacy, KSA as well. So you will have rules such as health records have to be in servers located in the country. They can't be on a Microsoft server in the Netherlands, for example. You know, it's also maturing. It's still not as developed as HIPAA or GDPR or US laws, but it's also a work in progress. Again, in these countries, I'll give you an example. In Lebanon, for example, we almost have no online privacy rules because we're still behind when it comes to digital maturity.
Okay, and we have a question here about how and where UX folks or even the general, population get their training and education for the field.
Well, there is no programs currently. So Abby, if you want to come out here and just give us a couple of courses. No, usually we go through the NNG, so Nielsen Norman Group, Interaction Design Foundation. We try and keep learning as much as we can. I know I'm signed up to 5 courses right now. So it's really an ongoing education, and you need to stay up with the trends of what UX is doing. Now there are different acronyms coming about. So, it's always growing, which is great. There's a lot of content out there. Great. We're gonna have to have you over. Just reading the comments, sorry. Go ahead, Tarek.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, very anecdotally, my personal observation, Lebanon tends to be one of the more liberal countries. You have very creative people here, designers, fashion designers, industrial designers. So naturally as well, you have lots of graphic designers, digital designers, but I still don't see UX as a degree, or even UI as a degree that it's given. I myself teach a course in a couple of universities. I know Lara has as well. but it's still like a course within a bigger degree that's usually either technical, so it's like some kind of developer, or designer, graphic design, that kind of degree. So I know that the design schools are investing more in having more of a UX maturity in their curriculum, but it's still not a degree on its own. So, and I tell this to my students: I wouldn't hire a fresh graduate graphic designer. Okay, graphic design is not the same as UI design, and there's still a big gap to fill. So I tell them to go practice, build a portfolio, take an app, audit it, redesign it on your own, in order to gain the experience necessary to bridge that gap from graphic design into UX UI. Personal observation. I don't know if you guys have different observations from your side.
No, I definitely.
No, I mean,
I feel that if there was a degree out there at the time, back in the day, then at least. But the thing is at some level, us as people that have worked in different industries, let's say, have always had this inclination to be more advocating for the users, especially for clients as well. I remember when I was working in advertising and marketing, I would get clients saying, oh, we want to do it this way. I'm like, yeah, but your user doesn't want it this way, you know? And they're like, just do it. So it's like, this is why there's a shift in skill sets as well. So having a user experience or having a user experience degree like Abby does offer in the universities, it would be very beneficial. Course is beneficial, but theory and practice goes a long way, I would say, in really kind of like driving the students to knowing, okay, this makes sense, this is what we're doing, and this is how we can implement it when we graduate.
Mm-hmm.
I would like to also add one thing today. I heard like a funny thing I would like to share with you from a friend who works in the tech scene. Like, you know, they were saying that, you know, the user doesn't want that, and the product person was like, but maybe the users maybe our users are wrong, so maybe we have the wrong users. And this is, you know, like this mindset. I think my challenge is about educating. You can educate people, and you know, I've taught students and they went into jobs and they hit a wall because people don't want to apply or they don't understand the value of the different aspects. And I think educating as well the leaders in firms, product managers, even the heads, you know, I think is more important, because UX needs endorsement. You need to get, you know, to do research, you need funding to get people to actually not do UX and UI at the same time. You need people to be given the right time to focus on UX first, focus on the research. Then, you know, I don't believe the same person should do both, but maybe in different mindsets, you can do both, not thinking of both. There's a conflict of interest. They shouldn't be done at the same time. So we need to also, you know, what's challenging is educating at a higher level. And that this would save you time of development, save you time of marketing and everything, because you understand who you're working with and what they need. And I think also part of it is these people going to these workshops. Yeah.
No, I think it's more also the timelines that people expect things to kind of like be done is a little unrealistic at times. You know, UX is really, you need to take your time to do the proper process or implement the proper process. So it's giving that UX personnel the opportunity to kind of like be the judge of the timeline required, not be given that timeline, you know. So that would be interesting if it's more implementable, as they say.
And in the Arab Gulf, I feel like there's always that I need it yesterday attitude, right? So that it always pushes, no, we need to meet the deadlines. We have deadlines, or else heads will roll, metaphorically. Yeah, I feel like there as well, like, yeah, it's okay, we're sold on your methodology, it's nice, we love it, but okay, can we skip a few steps and let's just start at the wireframes, for example, you know? Yeah.
Or just, I would like to add, like, sometimes, I mean, a lot of people used to come to me when I was working independently, and they've already hit a wall. So they've already done it wrong and they've already invested, and they come to me like, we already invested. So I'm like, you know, I mean, if you invested and did the wrong thing, doesn't mean that, you know, that's actually should be a learning curve. And that's why they're in a hurry. That's why they have KPIs they want to meet and they want things fast, and it doesn't work. So they want to skip that part, or they think they know what they want exactly. So so it's, again, it's one of the main challenges, at least that I used to face more when I'm working with smaller scale, at least, or products that are out there.
We are getting towards the end, and I know Tarek needs to leave a little bit earlier today. He has another commitment, so really appreciate you being here. No worries. But while you're here, just want to ask, like, you know, of you, if you have any stories of success in your experience, and of course, you know, no details are needed in terms of company or anything, but like if you could share a story of success in terms of how you improved the understanding of UX, or how you increased awareness of your work and the impact of your work, right? In some situations, that would be awesome for us to learn from you, and to maybe have some, you know, things that we can work with moving forward.
So I'm not sure if I'm getting you right, if I got the question right, but obviously there are stories where, like, we'd audit the checkout process, for example. This actually happened with one of my clients. We audited their checkout process because it was built on a legacy system. There were certain particularities that it had to follow, and I was like, guys, this is not what a regular checkout process looks like. We all use e-commerce websites. We're all used to a certain flow. And okay, could we just merge this page with that page? The developers would start complaining. But then I got all the data related to my argument. Okay, look at the drop-off rate. Look at the drop-off rate from this page to this page. Let's do some math. Let's do some calculations. And I had one client where we managed to increase their revenue by around $58,000 on a website that makes around $800,000 per year, just from like merging two pages, you know? So I use this example a lot, especially with my students. Guys, you don't understand 1 extra second, what it means, 1 extra click, 1 extra page loading time, what it means. But once you quantify these successes, and you're not just speaking theoretically, once you quantify them, people become more receptive to UX. And to me, really, really honestly, UX is a science, right? We follow the scientific method. You have an assumption, you test it. If it fails, you rework your assumption, you start with another hypothesis. If it passes, you generalize it and see if it works, right? This is how we work. We start off with, let me start off with this design, test it. Oh, there are a few usability issues I didn't see. Fix them, go live, test it some more. So I think whenever you can translate your work into numbers, that is where you win people over the most.
Awesome. Does anybody have any other stories?
I have a recent story. I was working on a project recently, and I was asked to do a quick UX audit on the product, and the client came back and said, no, we really feel this is a problem and we really need to fix it. And I sat there and I'm like looking at it, and I'm like, and I stopped a minute and I was like, okay, so why would you think it's a problem? They're like, well, because the user comes in and they enter a date in the middle of the month, and we're showing them something that is the full month, even though it's just half a month. And I went back to them and I said, really, is this a user problem or is this a business problem? Because the user won't even notice that, you know, you're giving them a budget and it's a monthly budget, whether it's coming in halfway through or at the end, it's still part of that month. So they came back and they're like, oh yeah, that makes sense. It's like we overthought it. So it's businesses tend to overthink things sometimes and kind of make things robust in terms of features. Like, so let's pack in as many features as we can, just to kind of like make sure we're going to get the business and the users are going to come on board. And what they're doing is really suffocating users at some level, where if it's not done right from a UX from a UX process, there will be problems fixing that error of over adding features on top of one another. So users will end up coming in and seeing way too many features or no features at all, based on the fact that they had so many features. Now it's only 3 features. How is that possible? So it's really, you know, it's a trial and error when it comes to how things are being done across the board, really.
I mean, I would like to maybe add to that, not the success stories from a product perspective, but success stories, and these are my favorite for me personally, is the transforming the company's mindset. And how you know, what I like about UX is that it teaches people as well how to think of make decisions. I think a lot of times designers or developers, even company owners, they struggle with how do we do it this way or that way, you know. And when they see that, I mean, my favorite thing with clients that I used to work is whenever we used to decide on the personas and do the design, the research, and decide the personas and the customer journeys. And they used to print them and put them in their offices just to understand who they're working for. And it used to lead, I saw companies, even the energy of the team was more excited. Doesn't mean it's not the direct success or success metrics that we're getting, but having people more collaborative, more thinking of others, of other users. And I've seen this, I mean, at different startups, especially startups when they're smaller teams. And for me, the success story is that after I've done my part and I left, they actually would hire someone for that, because, or get someone to be the process to be implemented, because they see the value, not only how their products transformed and the KPIs they met, but also that it became easier. I thought I was saying UX is a science. It's not rocket science, but not everyone does it, but it's a shift of mindset. And it actually gives answers easy. It makes even organizations make their decisions better, because we're not guessing, you know. And that's actually what makes me happy when I see companies implement it directly.
Thanks for sharing all these examples. They are great. So maybe we could close with a question around, there is somebody asking about like advice for sole UX researchers. So UX, a team of one, right, in a company. So maybe if you could give like some guidance in terms of like what these people working by themselves in companies, right, how they can get more mentorship, more guidance, learn and collaborate with more senior UXers in the region. What do you
sorry, before they start answering, I'm so sorry, but I really need to leave the call. I have 40 students waiting for me, so I'm sorry. It was lovely meeting you ladies and lovely being in this panel.
Thank you so much,
I'll
Tarek.
connect with you guys later. Bye.
Bye, Tarek.
So Tanya and Lara.
Go ahead, Lara.
I'm happy to, yeah. So I think, you know, being I mean, I'm going to share my experience and as well, like in this. I mean, I started in 2008. There were no UX designers. We worked together a long time ago. We were one of the few that we knew. So it's always going to be the case. And being part of a big team of UX UI designers is not always it's not always the case. What I would advise you is as much as you can, you know, it's a job. You got into something that's challenging in a region that's challenging. You push the buttons. You try to make sure, even if your company doesn't want to do UX research, figure out how to do it yourself and learn. Find a UX mentor. Always find someone who's more experienced than you to give you guidance, to give you ideas, to listen, to see another perspective. It doesn't have to be a team like in your company. but have always some place you can go, some person you can ask, but try to change things bit by bit. Try to do the research, even if it's not asked. Don't do the UX and UI together, split them. Take this opportunity to learn and to see how you can transform internally the process. It could be a success story you're proud of, or it could take you somewhere else. So you don't have to leave or find another company, because the challenge might be the same in a lot of places. So I hope this helps. I don't know what you think, Tanya.
I agree with you, and I'm not going to add anything to it. I'm 100% on board on that level. I'm just going to be redundant and repeat what you just said. So, but I think there was a question, Jana. I think there was.
Yeah, you already answered that. So that's advice for, somebody working in isolation, right? What would be ways for the person to connect with other people and learn? Maybe in this final minutes, if you could just like send a message about like what you want to see happening in the region, maybe your wish list, what maybe steps that you're taking towards, improving the maturity of UX in the region, and what you expect to see, what you hope to see moving forward.
Lara?
I mean, I think I'm still working on the fact that I'm still hoping that I don't have to explain what I do to companies, especially in the tech scene, or products, or even marketing. I think we do in the region, in the whole MENA region, we do have a lot of problems to solve. I hope people take designers not as designers, as Tanya was saying before. We're not designers, we're strategists. We actually transform experiences and people's lives, and that's why we're here. That's why we're focused on people. When none of us is working for something that is for robots, we're all working for people. So I hope that there would be more opportunities, more chances for designers to do their work right, and especially in a world that's moving very fast with a lot of potential. And yes, I hope I won't have to explain what's UX and what's the difference between UX and UI anymore. I don't know about you, Tanya.
Absolutely. No, I would probably ask them to go Google it and not waste our time, but that's beside the point. I would say it's more of really taking the stigma away from it being a design, as I said, rather than it being a process that you need to kind of invest in and really understand, and growing new UXers in the region and seeing people embrace this not job, I guess it's a job, so and be encouraged to do it, because even though we're few right now, I see a lot of potential out there. I've had candidates come and I've seen the potential. It's just they're very impatient. So it's really having that patience with people and growing teams where you can see the benefit and the value of what UX gives to a company, and not expecting that value to be visible instantaneously, because that's not realistic. So that's my 2 cents on the topic.
And thanks for that. And we had a final question here about how would you foresee the future of UX as companies in the world are, working more, getting into AI, VR. So how will you foresee the future of UX in that sense, of working those particular areas in the region?
I mean, from what I see, the way we're going is, we're talking about experiences. It's no longer like a digital and physical at the same time. It's completely digital. You're actually moving people to live somewhere and to do experiences. And this has to be really nailed down. that kind of rationale and that kind of experience was thought about more in games before. You know, that's a different level of experiences, because you're taking people in a full journey. When it comes to today, what's happening with the metaverse and all of these experiences and VR, and you can't, it's, you know, you have to nail it. You have to think of every aspect. You have to observe. So I think there's a need that there might be even a more developed, more drill down into UX research in this. And I see lots of even maturity there that's needed to get things right, if that makes sense. I don't know, Tanya, what you think?
I think at every level, UX would be beneficial in whatever industry they might be in. So it's also understanding each industry. So having that expertise or understanding, or someone within that field drive more advocacy for users at the end of the day. So I'm not adding much to your point, but that's my two cents, as they say, again.
Awesome. And I just want to end this here saying that, you know, we really appreciate your, you know, attendance today. So all the attendees who joined, we got questions about whether we are going to share the recording. Yes, we are going to share the recording with you. If you want to contact us with suggestions for other topics, maybe we could have another discussion or presentation on specific topics about UX that can be more specific, so you can, you know, use in your companies or in your work. We are happy to hear your suggestions, and we have previous webinars as well on the UXPA website where you can learn from different topics from various speakers. So, and Lara and Tanya and Tarek, thank you so much for accepting to join us today and for sharing your learnings and your, you know, your perspective on UX in the MENA region. I really hope we can meet again and talk more about like how that's evolving and what are other things, the wonderful things that I know that you keep doing in the region for, you know, the maturity of UX. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I appreciate it, Jana. I want to thank you and the team at the UXPA for having us. Always a pleasure.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Have a good weekend.
Thank you.
You too. Bye.
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 Bye. Bye. Bye. Thanks, everyone. Bye.